Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be making a gatefold card using this gorgeous Primrose Garden die set from Concord and I'm. I've been looking for a really good flower or floral die set for a while, and I love the fact that this is so versatile. So this is the card that we're going to be creating today. I'm going to be using different colours of cardstock, but you can see that we've used the die set to create a lovely gatefold card. So I'm going to show you how I've done that. So I've brought in my die cutter machine. This is the Sizzix Big Shot, and you're going to need two A2 card blanks. And first of all, for the first card blank, I'm opening it up nice and flat on my cutting plate, and you can see there that the die fits an A2 card front completely. But I'm just going to move it over slightly, just over that score line in the middle of the card, and I'm just going to tack that in place there because we only want to partially die cut with this die. So if you need to custom make your A2 card blanks, a US A2 card is 4¼ by 5½ inches. So you're going to need two pieces of white card that measure 5½ by 8½, and then you can score it on the 8½ side at 4¼ and you're going to need two of those. Now, to partially die cut, you want to make sure that your cutting plate just goes up to the edge of the score in the middle of your card blank. So where my cutting plate has got that lip that you can just about see there, I'm going to use that as a guide to line up to the score line in the centre of my card blank. That way the die is only going to cut where the cutting plate edge meets. So I am going to just flip this round in a minute because it was proving a bit too difficult to kind of balance it there. So I'm just going to turn my bottom plates around, and then I'm able to push that top plate through my die cutter machine and then just line that up carefully over the edge of the card blank, just so that it cuts just up to that score line. I don't want to cut into the back of my card, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutter machine, and you'll see in a moment that it has literally just cut the die up to where the cutting plate met. So I'm just going to remove that washi tape now, and you can see that we're just going to need to trim it slightly where it meets the fold in the card. That's just because it's the shape that the die is. But yeah, it's not a problem. We're going to snip that with our scissors. I'm just using my mini Tim Holtz scissors here to do that. And yeah, you can see we've got that really lovely shaped card now. So I'm going to trim this down a little bit more later on, as you'll see. But first of all, I'm going to go ahead and add that piercing die to the top as well. So again, we're going to follow the same process. I'm just going to line that up along the outline edge of that card blank. And then where it crosses over the score line on the card, I'm going to make sure that my cutting plate doesn't go over the edge of the score line and leave an impression on the back of my card. So again, I'm just tacking it in place using some washi tape, and I'm just making sure that I've lined my cutting plate up, and then I'm going to run that through my Big Shot machine. Now, you don't have to add this piercing layer over the top, but it is helpful when it comes to lining up the flowers because it does act as a guide. So I really wanted that on my card front today to really help me when I put it together. But yeah, it looks really, really fun, and we're just going to repeat this now on the other card blank in exactly the same way, but I am just going to make sure that I've flipped the die around and I'm using the other half of it so that those patterns aren't identical. I will again be adding the piercing die to the top of this as well, just again so that it helps me line up the flowers when I come to add the die cuts. It isn't necessary, but it definitely is a really helpful feature to have. So now we've got our second panel created. So this is the second A2 card blank. We can now attach them together. So in order to do that, we are going to need to just trim off a little bit of the excess card where the two join together. And I also want to trim off some of that excess white card at the top of this panel as well. So to do that, I've just lined up the edge of the card with my paper trimmer, and then I'm just trimming just the back of the card off, just a little slither. And I'm not putting my guillotine all the way down. I'm just trimming off the back of the card. So you want to be really careful when you're doing this. You could use scissors or a craft knife if you prefer, but I found it really easy to do with my paper trimmer. And I'm just going to trim off another slither just where the two cards are going to meet inside where those score lines are, just so that they don't catch on each other and they join together really nicely. So once I've done that, we're all ready to start arranging our flowers, and I'm just going to work on one card at a time before I glue them together. I've already gone ahead and die cut all the flowers off camera. This was a great way of using up some scraps that I've got. I've got piles of colour cardstock scraps, so floral die cuts are a great way to use those up. Now, to help you with the arrangement, because once you start adding layers down, you're not going to be able to see those dots. So I am going to keep the die to one side off camera just so that I can see the design, and that will just help me as I come to arrange those flowers. I'm going to start by adding the foliage first of all, but I am going to make up the flowers as well. And then I've got those ready to go when I come to add those together. I'm going to use some quick grab glue and a wax pencil to help me do this. I just find it really easy to use the pickup pencil, especially when you're arranging lots of smaller die cuts. So I'm getting all the flowers made up together. I've added those berries to the twigs, and then I'm adding a little bit of shape to some of those leaves, and then we can start sticking them down. And they will overhang a little bit to the side of the card panel, and we can trim all of that off afterwards. When you attach your leaves down and your flowers down, you want them to be at the edge of that shaped bit of the panel. So the dots stop just before, but you want those die cuts to hide all of that white space. So you add those right up to the edge. And again, just work out which layers you want to go first. I want those big leaves down first, and then I'm adding the smaller leaves on top so that they're still visible. But yeah, you can definitely play around with this layout. And of course, you don't have to follow the design that's already there for you. You can just arrange the flowers in your own way if you prefer. I really like having the guide to help me because I'm not very good at arranging flowers on my own. So it really, really helps to have that guide just there. I'm using the Nuvo Deluxe glue just because it dries really quick, whereas the belly arts just takes a second longer. So you can see that once this is finished, it looks absolutely stunning. You can imagine this is a whole card front. It is so pretty. I really, really love this die set. So I'm just going to trim off the excess foliage here that's hanging over the edge of the card. I'm just using my long bladed scissors to do this, but again, you could use a paper trimmer. Just make sure that the glue's nice and dry before you do this. I did have a few difficulties because that pink cardstock that I've used is very thick. It's much thicker than the other card that I've used. It was just in my scraps pile. It was like a coated card as well. So I was having a little bit of difficulty cutting through all of the layers. But if you're just using standard colour cardstock, you shouldn't have any problems here at all. So that's the first half of our card done. I'm going to repeat exactly the same process on the second half. And then with the magic of video editing, here they are both completed. So we can now attach the two cards together, and I'm just going to add some liquid glue to the back of this card and stick it straight inside the other card. I'm using some Collal Glue here just because I'm using a lot of glue on quite a big area, and so I know with the Collal Glue it's really strong, but also because it doesn't have any water content, it's not going to cause any warping. And then I'm going to add a sentiment to the front of this, and I'm going to use that gorgeous big hugs die from Concord and I'm, and also a smaller sentiment from the So Many Sayings stamp and die set. I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of the hugs as well, just to add a little bit of dimension. And I'm only sticking the sentiment to one half of the card. I want to make sure that it's just on the one side because obviously we need the card to be able to open. And then I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape to that smaller sub-sentiment as well that just says "You are loved." And that's white heat embossed on black cardstock. So once I've stuck that down, I'm going to add a few little gold flat back pearls to finish. And then that is my card finished for today. So thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to try this with whatever you've got in your stash already. You could make a gatefold card using floral dies without having the shaped edge. Or you could die cut florals, create a shaped edge and then cut around it with your scissors to create a similar effect. I really love how this has turned out today, and of course all the products that I've used will be linked below in the description box. As always, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to leave me a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.